Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for NCUA's webinar on free data tools and resources available to credit unions. I am Allie Lambersky, a credit union training coordinator here in the Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion at the NCUA, and I will be the moderator for today's program. Before we begin, I do have just a few administrative announcements. If you're having any difficulty hearing my voice, please adjust the volume on your computer. If you are still having difficulty after adjusting the volume, please use the Q&A feature at the right-hand corner of your console to send us a message. A member of our tech support team will be with you right away to provide assistance. In addition, please make sure that you allow pop-ups from this site to have full visibility of all materials being shown today. This webinar will also be available in approximately 2 weeks with a recorded version on our learning management system for on-demand viewing as well. And the material will also be closed captioned, and you will have the ability to download a PDF version of this PowerPoint presentation. To access these education resources, you need to have an account on the NCUA's LMS or Learning Management System. The good news is it is completely free for credit union employees and volunteers, so there is no charge for account setup. So we encourage you to please create an account on our LMS. We have over 200 courses available for amazing learning opportunities. To access the LMS, please go to ncua.gov/support services. Select Credit Union Resources and Expansion, and then further select Learning. Once again, you will have over 200 courses available to you within 24 hours of registering, so I do encourage you to sign up. Before we begin, I do have a disclaimer that I must read out to you as well. The materials in this webinar are intended as an informative and educational summary of general information on free data tools and resources available to credit unions. The NCUA has taken reasonable measures to ensure the quality of the data and other information produced by the NCUA that's available in this presentation. The NCUA, however, makes no warranty, expressed or implied, nor assumes any legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, correctness, or completeness of any information that's available through this presentation, nor represents that its use would not infringe on privately owned rights. The slides are intended for educational and discussion purposes and do not constitute legal advice, nor replace independent professional judgment. Reference to any specific commercial product, process, or service by trade name, trademark, manufacturer, or otherwise does not constitute an endorsement, recommendation, or favoring by the U.S. government or the NCUA. This is our agenda for today's webinar. I will provide brief opening remarks and introduce our speaker before turning it over for our presentation today on free data tools and resources available to credit unions. Afterwards, we will have time for a brief Q&A. I will also take a moment to review any upcoming events and webinars, and then of course end our presentation by providing contact information at the end. Throughout this presentation today, I do encourage you to send in any questions you may have using that Q&A feature at the bottom of your console. Before we get started, I do have a brief polling question for you regarding your credit union. It is, what asset range best represents your credit union? A, up to 50 million, B, 51 million to 250 million, C, 251 to 500 million, D, 501 to 1 billion, E, over 1 billion, or F, not a credit union. Please take a moment to answer this just so we have an idea of who's joining us on our webinar today. All right, it looks like we do have a great mix of credit unions here. Thank you guys so much for taking a moment to respond. I hope that you find this presentation today incredibly helpful and informative. So today's presentation is going to be on free data tools and resources available to credit unions. Joining us today is Adam Grundy, who is from the U.S. Census Bureau, and he is a supervisory statistician. Adam began his career at the Census Bureau in 2009 as part of the Investment Goods Industries branch in the Manufacturing and Construction division. Throughout his time at the Census Bureau, Adam has also been selected as a leader for the Economic Directorate's first General Workforce Advisory Board. He served as the board's president and led his colleagues by establishing a charter for the board, facilitating presentations at town halls, and engineering a general workforce survey to provide detailed recommendations to the senior leadership. He has also recently worked on the economy-wide statistics division as a survey analyst in the healthcare and education branch. He has helped analyze data for both the economic census as well as the services annual survey. During his tenure in the services area, Adam was also elected as a co-leader for the Joint Subcommittee for Communication. During his time in the Data User Outreach and Education branch, where he is joining us from today, he has worked in the International Trade Management divisions and has taken on several leadership roles. For example, he has developed an online calendar, for the Econ Directorate, participated in several key stakeholder meetings for developing the Census Bureau Builder data platform, and served as a valuable member of the data outreach team for the Census Bureau. So we are very excited to have Adam with us here today, and I will turn it over to him to be able to begin our presentation.
Thank you, Ali. I'm going to go ahead. Oops, click the wrong button there. I'm going to go ahead and click on my screen for go ahead and sharing my screen. And I want to go ahead and thank all the organizers for putting this great presentation together. And I'm going to be guiding you guys through how you can use free Census Bureau data tools in order to help you with your credit unions. So first of all, just to kind of level set with you guys, this is how we're structured in the Economic Directorate. You see on this pyramid slide. Oops, seems like it was advancing on its own for a second. But I'm going to go ahead and go through this pyramid here. So we have a high frequency surveys at the top of our slide. This would be examples of things such as our monthly surveys that go through. I apologize for this. I'm going to take off the timings for a second. Apologies for the little bit of the hiccup there, but so we have our high frequency surveys at the top of our slide. These would be things like our business trends and outlook survey and small business pulse survey as well. Also at the monthly and quarterly surveys, we have the most up-to-date timely data available. These would be things such as our M3 or manufacturers inventories and shipment surveys, and quarterly services survey also at the middle of the pyramid as well. Our annual surveys will be things such as the annual survey of manufacturers, or we also have things such as annual retail trade survey that focus on basically those, sector-based surveys. And those provide the most up-to-date trend data available. And then as we move down our pyramid, we have things such as our economic censuses, or things such as the census of governments. These take place every 5 years, and we're currently in the cycle of the economic census right now. So the 2022 economic census is currently ongoing, and we also have data available from the census of governments that's also going on as well. And at the bottom of our pyramid is our foundational administrative data. This helps us supplement or produce additional economic products. So on this slide, I'm going to be talking about basically how we're structured on a NAICS hierarchy. And NAICS stands for North American Industry Classification System. It's our primary data dimension, and the sector is the 2-digit level of basically how we're structured in the NAICS hierarchy. As you add more digits to your NAICS code, such as subsector or industry group or industry, you get much more specific, as you can see on the chart on the right-hand side. Other things I'll be talking about today is the difference between an establishment versus a company. So we have establishments as a single physical location of a business, whereas a company can have multiple different establishments within it. And firms are also another term that we use kind of interchangeably with companies. Our collection or tabulation levels are vary from different surveys and programs, but we also have employers versus non-employers. The majority of our surveys and programs cover employer businesses or businesses with paid employees, whereas compared to non-employers, those are the people with no paid employees. They're the self-proprietors out there. Those could be things that range from like taxi limousine services to real estate agents, all the way up to other examples like a family daycare, things like that. And then, like I said before, most programs only cover the employer businesses, but I'll also be talking a little bit about our non-employers through certain data tools today. So where does this great data come from? First of all, it's from county business patterns, and I'll be going through different examples of each of these today. So these cover employer businesses in the county business patterns program, whereas non-employers cover the self-employed persons in the United States. They fill out a 1099 tax form, and this allows us to track what those non-employers are doing as they vary from sector to sector. The annual business survey is a great survey because it provides business owner demographics for all the businesses in the United States, and includes business owner data. So if we're looking for the number of Asian-owned retail locations in the United States, the annual business survey would be able to provide that for you. If you're looking for the number of Black-owned, let's say, restaurants in the state of Maryland, we could provide that from the annual business survey as well. And then for the economic census, this is our official 5-year measure of American businesses. And this provides very comprehensive statistics at the national, state, and very granular local levels, which makes our data tools that much more powerful. So the first program that I'll talk about is our county business patterns. This is published on an annual basis. The 2022 data will be coming out later on this year. This provides statistics on the number of establishments, employment, annual payroll for nearly every 2 through 6 digit NAICS code. So it allows us to produce graphics such as the snack food and beverages graphic about the big game or the Super Bowl as an example. The data are published at the national, state, metro, county, congressional district level, which is the only program in the Economic Directorate which publishes at the congressional district level, and also zip code levels. So again, it's an annual program that we rely on quite a bit in order to make our data tools really be powerful for you guys as credit unions. Non-employer statistics, like I mentioned before, it covers all the people that have no paid employees, or all the businesses with no paid employees, I should say. So these are the self-employed persons in the United States. So usually we think of non-employer statistics as measuring the gig economy. So things like taxi limousine services, family daycares. Other examples would be like real estate agents. A lot of those drive the economy for the non-employers. And in many cases, non-employers actually outweigh the number of employer establishments in the United States. So for the non-employer statistics, this is published at the national, state, metro area, and county levels, but does not cover the 5 U.S. territories, unfortunately, like County Business Patterns does. And then the annual business survey is also very powerful because it shows us all the great business owner demographics that we have from the Census Bureau and from the people that respond to our surveys. So it includes the statistics on the number of firms or companies, employment, annual payroll, sales, shipments, receipts, or revenue for nearly every 2 through 4 digit NAICS code, which is pretty granular level. The data is published at the national, state, county, and place levels. And the data are also shown by race, ethnicity, gender, and veteran status of the business owner. So when I guide you through some of the different data tools today, it's going to be important for you to take a look at where that data is coming from. So before I go into some of the demos for some of our data tools today, I want to also talk about the economic census. So the economic census is conducted every 5 years, years ending in the digit 2 or 7. So we're currently in the 2022 economic census cycle. The data is conducted online, and the response was required by law during this collection period. So there's about 4 million business locations that covered most industries, and the results are all available free and online. So this is one of the main resources that's available as we release data for it. So basically on this slide, I'm talking about, with the 4 million businesses that receive the economic census, 8 million of the total businesses are employer establishments. So that means if there's 30 million businesses in the United States, as an example for an estimate, that means there's approximately 22 million businesses that are non-employers. So that usually tends to open up some eyes for a lot of people, I would say. But that is true. Majority of our businesses out there, or the small businesses out there, are non-employers. So that's the purpose of this slide here. So there's a couple different ways you can access our data, and I'm going to be demoing a couple of these data tools today. The first one is quick facts. You can see on the top left of your screen. So much like the name implies, quick facts just give you a quick example of what's going on in certain geographies from data from the Census Bureau. My congressional district, like I talked about briefly when I talked about county business patterns, provides data at your congressional district. So even if you don't know what your congressional district is, we have a helpful lookup tool that we can enter your zip code to figure out what your congressional district is. My tribal area obviously focuses on the tribal areas. On the map for emergency management tracks all of our ongoing national emergencies and disaster areas. Whereas Census Business Builder, the main data tool I'll be demoing today, takes a look at both our economic demographic data onto a map. So you can really drill down into certain geographies. And then also we have our COVID-19 data hub, which was obviously stood up during the pandemic. And then data.census.gov is also available for you to pull data from the economic census, county business patterns, non-employment statistics, and much more. These charts right here, or the list, I should say, is by ease of use. The quick facts is obviously the easiest to use, whereas Census Business Builder is fairly easy to use, and then data.census.gov takes a little bit more nuancing and practice in order to get those done, get through the data for you. So, all right, so let's get into the data now. So if you were opening up a credit union in the state of Florida, you want to look at a couple of different demographics and characteristics of data variables that we see on the map for Census Business Builder, which is the data tool that's being displayed right now. So you can see that I've already selected my industry of credit unions. We're in the state of Florida, which is outlined in this black outline over here. And I've also honed in on the number of establishments or single physical locations in the state of Florida. So according to County Business Patterns data, there's 1,173 credit unions with paid employees in the state of Florida. And then I also selected a couple of different variables in here that you can see on this chart here. If I want to see how the state of Florida compares for the number of credit unions, I could see on this geo rankings scale right here. So Florida would be in first, in about third of the number of states that we have here. Texas was number 1, California was number 2, and Pennsylvania was the 4th number of the largest states that have the largest number of credit unions. Other things we have in here is the average revenue per employer. This is at the state level because that's the geography that I've selected. $68,000 per year is the median household income. So again, if you're looking for leveraging some of this data in order to help out the people in your community in the state of Florida as a credit union, you could obviously use this data and helping you to inform those data-driven decisions. And then we also have $5.1 thousand per year for the average revenue per employer. And again, that's in thousands of dollars. Then that would be 5.1 million. And then the average income is $97,000 per year in the state of Florida. So this is just one of many examples that you can pull. When I go live to Census Business Builder, you'll see a couple different things in the reports. First of all, you'll see that you can provide a business summary, business comparison, and even our consumer spending data that we purchased from a company called Esri or ESRI, that we put that back directly into the tool for free for you guys. So we're currently in version 5.5 of Census Business Builder. So about twice a year, we come up with a different version of Census Business Builder in order to listen to our data users in real time and figure out what we can do to improve the functionality of the data tool, put new data in the data tool, and also figure out ways we can improve functionality in general. So in the past, we had two different versions of Census Business Builder. We had the Small Business Edition, you can see over here on the left-hand side of my screen, and then the Regional Analyst Edition as well. So you can see back in the version 4.2, we had two different versions of Census Business Builder. As we listened to our data users, we found that most people wanted to just dive into the data with one main tool that has the functionality of both of those. So that's where version 5.0 came from. We're currently in version 5.5, but we also have a couple of different things that are helpful for new users of the data tool called Census Business Builder, or CBB. The first one is the Take a Tour option. You can see on the left hand, on the middle of your screen, actually, this orange button that says Take a Tour. And what that does is it simulates the core functionality of that data tool. Also, key features on Census Business Builder are things such as our dashboard, which you can see highlighted in red right now. And that was some of the things that I showed you in that first example about opening up a credit union in the state of Florida. Other things we have here is our region view. So if you want to select multiple different counties, whether that be for the purpose of opening up a credit union or even servicing your community in those certain areas, you could do those at various levels of geography across state lines or even county lines and things like that. The geographic level is our location search that we see over here. So you see the state of Nebraska was selected for this example. You can select custom industries. So I'll show you how you can get to the credit unions in different geographies in just a moment. The total population is one of the main variables we have that starts off in Census Business Builder versus the number of establishments or many different variables that you can choose from. We also have our map variable options and filters that you can do for adjusting the map to your liking. Also different reference layers that we can see on the right-hand side of your screen. And then our legend. This tells you what you're looking at in real time by taking a look at what you selected for your primary variable, your secondary variable, and then what the legend does correspond to the color on the map that you can see to make sense of the data as you're clicking through it. And then lastly, the create report button allows you to go directly to these reports in order to either formulate a business plan, help out with grant writing, or even just better service the people in your community. So this slide just talks about what you would see in that report, things such as the number of employer businesses, the revenue, which comes from our economic census data, and the business comparisons, seeing how other customers are using not only credit union data, but also other businesses around that particular area. So let's say you're opening up a credit union in the state of Tennessee, and you see there's 10, I'm just making this up, just 10 credit unions in the state of Tennessee, and you see that there's also a great number of concentration of, let's say, restaurants in that area. You may be thinking about opening up a credit union in the state of Tennessee because you see there's a lot of foot traffic in that area, and you want to better leverage the data that's out there from the Census Bureau in order to help you make an informed decision about opening up a credit union for one, and then also to take a look at how you can help those customers in those areas with coming up with great ideas to either opening up a restaurant or another business similar to that. And then also in Census Business Builder, which I'll go live in just a moment, is our region builder. So like I mentioned before, you can go across different state lines, county lines, even city towns in this red outline you can see over here in order for you to build a region. Some of the unintended uses of Census Business Builder, which we noticed from our data users, is that people were building regions for affected areas of, let's say, a natural disaster. So if there was a hurricane that came through Florida, people were using Census Business Builder in order to figure out the economic recovery of certain areas as well. So that's one of the things you can do within this data tool. And of course, the data sources are the main driver of what makes this data tool so powerful. Our demographic, socioeconomic, and housing data are from the American Community Survey, or ACS, whereas our business data is from all the different data and surveys and programs that I talked about today, such as county business patterns, non-employer statistics, the economic census, and of course, the annual business survey. You can also upload your own data into Census Business Builder via Excel file upload feature. If you're curious about how to do that, I won't cover that during this webinar, but there are several different webinars from the Census Bureau, as well as in that take a tour option. If you're looking to upload your own data, let's say you're opening up a credit union in the state of Florida, you can upload all those different examples of different addresses from credit unions in the state of Florida to see what would be the best location to open up that particular business. So now I'm going to go ahead to the live demo of Census Business Builder. If you want to follow along with me on a separate browser, you can visit this URL here, cbb.census.gov. So now I'm going to go to my browser, and you can see Census Business Builder is already loaded on my page. As I mentioned before, Census Business Builder is available for free for anybody who wants to utilize the data from the Census Bureau. So like I mentioned before, we have the take a tour option, but I'm going to close out of that just to give you a demo right from the beginning. You can see my primary variable is set on establishments. But first of all, I need to set my geography. So I'm going to go to the state of California for this example. So after I type in California, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my geography, and I'm going to select the state of California. Again, I haven't chosen any industry yet, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the custom industry of credit unions. So now once I see that it's populated on the map to the state of California, I'm going to click on this custom industries button, and I'm going to start to type in credit unions, and you'll see a couple of different examples pop up. Depending on the NAICS code that you're looking for opening up a credit union or even just expanding your business for our purpose today, I can go ahead and select one of the different examples of one of these industries that pop up. So I'm just waiting for it to populate. Usually it's much quicker than this, but again, with so many people on the line, we want to make sure that we honor your guys' time and make sure that this populates properly. So once credit unions is able to pop up, I'm going to just minimize something right here. There we go. My apologies for a little bit of delay here. After I've selected credit unions, it looks like it's starting to populate. The state of California. Oops, maybe it's the typo that I made. There we go. All right, for the state of California, we've already selected no industry so far. I'm going to just reload this just for a moment. There we go. All right, so we have credit unions over here, NAICS 52213. Okay, after I've selected my industry, I'm going to go ahead and close out on the map, and I can see the different things. Oh, didn't select it. Oh, it's so weird. My apologies, guys. If that were to populate, I would say that with a couple of different things you would want to take a look at while you're looking at credit unions. So while I'm waiting for that to populate, I'm going to show you some different examples of what things you would notice on this map. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and hone it on the state of California. Other things you can manipulate on the map are the number of establishments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select either the bar on the left side or the top and go to, let's say, business annual and the number of non-employers. So again, since credit unions wasn't able to populate, I'm just going to use an example of non-employer firms in this example. And then for the state of California, if I want to look at my secondary variable of employer establishments, just to show you an example of that, I'm going to go ahead and click on all employer establishments. So just to kind of drill down the point of the number of non-employers that are out there, in the state of California, there's 3,348,085 non-employer firms of all sectors of the economy. Whereas for employer establishments, we have 998,582 employer establishments. So a couple of different things you can manipulate on here. So if I was a credit union in the state of California, I want to look at a couple of different things over here. First one is median household income. That may or may not be important to you, but I can change anything that you can see on this dashboard by clicking on that little pencil button and changing that variable. So what I'm going to go to first is some of our key ratios by looking at our examples over here, by looking at our consumer spending data. And let's say I want to figure out how much people are spending out on some household services. Anything you see on the left-hand side that has a drop-down arrow means you can hone in on those certain things. So if I was looking for honing in on people that want to look at, let's say, care for the elderly and handicapped, I can go ahead and select that consumer spending category. Other things I can see, we have percent high school degree or higher. I'm going to go ahead and select those over here. And now I'm going to select different things over here about business annual. And now I'm going to go to some of my key ratios. So if I was looking for examples of the average a payroll per employee, which might be important for a credit union, I can go ahead and select that as well. So once that populates on the map, you can also hone in on each of these different data categories. Okay. Another thing I can see is that my create report button, if I select that for this example for the state of California, once this is able to populate, it'll show me different things you can see that I originally showed you in that slide deck. Basically, different examples about the business comparison from state to state. You can also take a look at how it compares to different sectors of the economy and things such as that. But since I'm having a little bit of tech issues with the internet, I'm going to go ahead and go back to our slide deck for just a moment and go through another data tool that I'm going to show you just a moment. And that one is called My Community Explorer. And in My Community Explorer, what it does is it showcases a couple of different examples of how you can track real-time events, such as whether that be wildfires, hurricanes, or air quality alerts, onto a map as well. So this one gives it different examples about things that were happening during this particular period of time. And on my next slide, I'm going to show you examples of components of social vulnerability. We originally called these risk factors. So if you were a data user that heard the term risk factors in the past, this is pretty much speaking about the same type of thing for My Community Explorer. The components of social vulnerability are used interchangeably with a risk factor. And all these different things that you can see on this chart over here are examples of things that we would call measures of social vulnerability. So if you have 3 or more of these categories in a certain geography, you're considered high risk. 1 to 2 of these measures of social vulnerability would be examples of medium risk, and then 0 to 1 of any of these categories would be considered low risk. So let me give you some examples of that. This is a map of Maryland. You can see different things that you can see going on the legend, for example, for this. So you can see on the orangish side of the examples of population with 3 or more measures of social vulnerability. So you can see this geography over here. That's a measure of 3 or more risk factors in this particular population. Other examples in yellow have examples of 1 to 2. On average, number of people with 1 to 2 measures of social vulnerability or risk factors. And then in green, as well as in silver, you hear is examples of measures with 0 risk factors, 0 measures of social vulnerability. And then you can also see on the dashboard, based on the geography you selected, which in this case was Maryland, in Montgomery County, Maryland, the number of households that are out there, total population, and percent living in poverty, and things like that. All right, so now on this particular example, I've honed in on a census tract. Basically, you can think of a census tract as a level of geography, much like a community. So in this example, you can see a retirement community called Leisure World, which is actually a real retirement community that my parents have retired at. So this one has different examples of things with 3 or more risk factors or measures of social vulnerability. So the first one is this main area of Leisure World here. It has 3 or more risk factors. So that would be things such as percent living with a disability, no access to a vehicle, no access to broadband internet. These are all different examples of measures of social vulnerability. And then as I hone in on that chart, I can also see different examples of percentages as well as the total population in the census tract. So whereas 3 or more risk factors, 56.63% of this census tract here had 3 or more measures of social vulnerability. And if I'm looking for the total number of residents, this would be 1,161. So if you're trying to figure out how you can reach these certain areas as a credit union, you may want to look at what would be some of the vulnerable population. You might be wanting to help out these people in certain communities that have less risk factors, possibly too. And you could open up a credit union to help you help the customers in order to make the better informed decisions to help improve their overall well-being. And then as you scroll across the different parts of this example of My Community Explorer, you can also see what measures of social vulnerability the people in this population come across. So 4.8% are income below the poverty level. We also have broadband subscription. Most people do have that, but it's 82.5%. 97% are high school graduate degree or higher, and 8.4% in this particular census tract speak English less than very well. And this is all data that we pull from our American Community Survey for some of these different examples of our five-year estimates. And then as you continue to navigate through My Community Explorer, this will be different things that you can see within the dashboard. The one that I've selected here is our economic profile for the state of Maryland and Montgomery County, Maryland. So you can see things such as the Gini index. What this basically means is how vulnerable the population is, or how much inequality there is in that particular area. So the closer you are to 0, the less inequality there is. The closer you are to 1.0, the more inequality there would be. So this one is right about in the middle, for 0.4689. We also have households income below the poverty level, and also different things such as household income above $75,000 per year. All part of this second tab of economic profile. And if my internet cooperates, I promise to go live in just a moment for a different geography. We also have different social characteristics here, such as households living with one or more disabilities, languages spoken at home, and you can see the predominant language in this particular area of Montgomery County, Maryland, is English only, with the second most language most spoken at home is Spanish. And other things you can see within these county profiles are race and ethnicity data that comes from our annual business survey. So things such as if I was looking for the number of, let's say, Black-owned restaurants, that would be from our annual business survey. But this one focuses on the actual population that don't own a business or just living in that community. So you can see if I was honing in on the Hispanic or Latino race for this particular county, you can see exactly where these populations are located, which is mostly in the middle of Montgomery County, Maryland. If I was targeting people such as Black or African American, you can see that's closer to the DC line of Montgomery County, Maryland. So this gives you a little bit more information about demographics of the makeup of certain communities and how you can better service these communities as well with the free data available from the Census Bureau to help credit unions and other businesses thrive. And then the last part of this is our business profile, which takes a look at the sector by sector base from our county business patterns data compared to non-employer statistics. So in this example here, professional, scientific, and technical services, or NAICS 54, is the predominant industry in Montgomery County, Maryland. And then if you look at non-employers, it's about the same. Professional, scientific, and technical services is also a big driver of the economy there. But we also see transportation and warehousing being a large number of non-employers here, where there was very few employer establishments in this example here. So in order to get to My Community Explorer, you can either do two different things. You can either scan this QR code here, which I would recommend if you want to follow along, or you can go to this URL here, which I've embedded into this presentation. Anything that you can see on this presentation will be available to you afterwards. So if I continue to experience any tech issues, I promise you can go ahead and look at the My Community Explorer on your own time as well. Well, let me see if it's cooperating now. So if I go to My Community Explorer and I go to certain geographies within My Community Explorer, I'm going to start first by selecting a state. So I'm going to start with the state of Florida. And now I'm going to select a secondary geography or a county level. Once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the Bay County, Florida, just for this example. So a couple of different things you can see on this map are different examples of ongoing wildfires. And we pull this data in directly from NOAA in order to pull up all the different ongoing national emergencies in real time. So like I showed you in those slides before, we also have different examples of what's going on in certain geographies. So in this one, we have the Bay County, Florida Census Tract. So examples of 3 or more components of social vulnerability is 15.25% for this particular census tract. And also, if I want to go directly to a direct report to my previous data tool that I tried to demo for you guys earlier, was Census Business Builder, you can go directly to these links in here as well. Other things you can see in the data tool is how it compares. Oh, I'm going to go to the first one here, of how it compares to the national average. So in this particular example of Bay County, Florida, the percent that is not Hispanic or Latino, Asian, or alone is lower than the national average. Okay, so it gives you a little bit more information about the clientele for here. Now, if I want to go to some of my social characteristics, I can go to the different tabs, which are on the bottom, such as the percent living with 1 or more disabilities, households without a vehicle, whether that be percentage-wise or by number of people in the community, and then also our economic profiles as well. And again, each of these different things has a different legend to it and also different information on there and helpful tooltips as well. So if you ever need to remember what the Gini index is, we also have these little helpful tooltips and the URLs that are built into this here that help you remember each of these different things. So I'm going to, in order to save time, I'm also going to go back into my presentation. I'm also going to bring up my contact slide. And at this time, I will see if I can turn it back over to Ali to see if we have any questions on the line that I can hopefully address. And I appreciate everyone's participation. Thank you.
I was going to begin talking and then I realized I still had my mic muted, but I wanted to say thank you so much, Adam, for that presentation. Coming from Florida, I'm always very excited when I see Florida represented in anything. So thank you very, very much. I hope everybody found that very insightful and very informative as well, particularly in how using these data tools can help your credit unions. So you did mention questions, and while you were presenting, we did get a few questions come in on the line. So I'm actually going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Ron, who will guide us through our Q&A session.
Great. Looking forward
Great,
to it.
thank you. Great, thank you so much, Ali, and thank you also, Adam, for that great presentation and everyone for joining us. So, Adam, we do have quite a few questions that came in. The first one is about low income designation, and the question is, what tools, or does the Census Bureau have tools that can help us monitor for our low income designation status?
Yeah, so actually, the 2 of the tools that I demoed today, Census Business Builder, as well as My Community Explorer, both of those have data in there about percent living in poverty or even low income designation areas. So the one I would recommend over the other is probably My Community Explorer for this particular example, because we have much more data at the census tract level or community level that allows you to really hone in on those populations. But if you ever have trouble with pulling up some of these data points, I'll make sure I leave up my contact information as well in order to make sure we can get the data that you need in order to help you service those communities.
Very good. Thank you. Our next question is more of a statement that leads to a question, and it's a little long, so I'm going to take my time. And the
Sure.
question is, in order to better identify and assist underserved and low to moderate income individuals and households, it would be helpful to learn how we can search census data at the county level to cross-reference the available data by household income and household size in order to determine how many households within a geographic area, like a county, might fall within HUD, LMI, or low to medium income criteria. LMI income levels vary by household size, and I don't know how to search the census site to use those 2 data points in tandem.
Okay, that's a great statement / question, because I think if I understand what they're getting at is they need some assistance with pulling Census Bureau data. So a couple of different things within that statement is, first of all, you can use data tools such as Census Business Builder or My Community Explorer and help you identify those certain regions of the country that may be underserved. The first, and I'm glad they use an example of county level, because we usually recommend that you start at the county level first for using our business level data, because as you go much more down to, let's say, zip code or city town, there's less data available for you. If you ever need a walkthrough, I'd be happy to set up either a Zoom call or things like that. And we also have, if you don't have time for that, we also have several different recorded webinars on our Census Bureau website that helps you guide you through a lot of these different data tools, and also our data.census.gov platform in order for you to pull that data for you. But again, I'm available for your for any assistance you may require.
Very good. Thank you, Adam. And I thought that was a great question / comment also. Our next question, and I'm going to ask the question and then make a slight comment. Can you use this tool based on zip code, or is it just by state? And this came when you were talking about the Census Bureau Builder, when you were demoing
Yes.
that. And I noticed on there was a tab for zip code.
There
So
is.
I'm assuming the answer is correct, is yes for that. But when you were showing the My Community Explorer, I didn't notice that, and I may have just missed it. So
Yeah,
like
that's
to
a
have you
good
answer that
question.
question.
So for Census Business Builder, you can actually select it by the geography of a zip code right off the bat. For My Community Explorer, we thought it would be more important for you to start at the county level, because there's more data available at that level. First of all, when you use a zip code level for businesses on Census Business Builder, you'll notice that a lot of those things are grayed out on the map. And the reason why is because of our data disclosure, and to protect individual businesses, we have to disclose that data in order to make sure that we're not going to unveil the actual company names of the people that respond to our surveys. So in this particular case, I would recommend that you look up the zip code of a certain thing within Census Business Builder to get your county equivalent, to see what county that would be included in that, and then drill down into My Community Explorer from there on once you know your county equivalent, and then you can go to the census tract or zip codes within that in order to pull the data that you're looking for.
Thank you. Next question, and I like this question, and I understand it, I think. For the number of credit unions in Florida, and I guess this would go for anywhere that you're looking at, does establishments represent the branches or individual institutions? And if I understand this question, like where I live, in my zip code, there are multiple McDonald's, 7-Elevens, and you name it. So are those, individual companies, each one, or is it just the one
Yes,
company? I think
so
is
an
what they're
establishment
asking.
is basically a single physical location of a business. So if we're looking at firms or company levels or even franchises, so that you gave the example for, Ron, that would be multiple different establishments within that. But when we're looking at establishments, those are the single physical locations. So it's just one at a time. So in this example, let's say there's 1,250 restaurants in the state of Florida by using Census Business Builder. That means there actually are those number of locations. But again, that's the businesses with paid employees, because occasionally there'll be examples of non-employers. Like I did an example for different things within that presentation. So you have to always make sure you look at the employers versus non-employers in order to get the full grasp of what's going on in certain sectors of the economy.
Very good. Thank you. Our next question is there an API where we can grab this data for JSON or JSON, however you want to pronounce it, or XML?
Yeah, so we actually have an API that we pull directly for on these data tools from the Census Bureau. If you're looking for more information about that, I'd recommend just going to our census.gov, and then in our search bar, there's a spot where you can type in your search, and I would just type in API just as it is. And we have several different resources out there on the Census Bureau website in order for you to pull directly from our API on your own websites, or even to leverage different things from that. So there's different guidance on there on the Census Bureau website for API for sure.
Excellent, thank you. And then I have a question for you, Adam.
Mhm.
You were talking about earlier, you talked about, you know, non-employer businesses and employer businesses. You put cab drivers in the category of non-employee businesses, if I'm
Yes.
correct, if
Mhm.
I remember correctly. My question is, how has over the years, and how should credit unions look at this perhaps, how has things like the emergence of Uber or Lyft or any of the new services, you know, Uber Eats or whatever that has
Sure.
actually come a part of society impacted the census data?
Yeah, so we've actually noticed a couple different things in certain sectors of the economy where non-employers are far outweighing the number of employer establishments out there. And we call this as part of the gig economy, people that work multiple jobs in order to make ends meet. So to answer your question, Ron, about how they can leverage this data, I would recommend using both county business patterns and non-employer statistics together in order to figure out how you're getting the full picture of the economy. Because if you're only using one over the other, you're only getting a piece of that. Especially if you negate the non-employers altogether, that's a big piece
Mhm.
you're missing of the full picture.
That is very interesting. Thank you. And our
Sure.
last question, because we're out of questions, and this one is another one based on a thought I had when you were talking about the breakdown uh, s- of people, and in one category was speaks English less well. And
Mm-hmm.
my question is that based on like immigrant status, like English is not their, you know, English is their second language, or is it based on education level? Because or both.
Yeah, in that case, it is people that respond to our American Community Survey survey. So basically, they're filling out on their form that what their predominant language is. So if they know that, let's say English is a second language, they can mark that directly on the form, and we pull directly from that exact data at those community levels in order to make sure that the data is published to the best of our standards at the Census Bureau to make sure this is accurate for each community. So that's how they're marking it, is directly from the respondents on our surveys.
Understood. And I can see how that could be really helpful to credit unions having that
For
kind
sure.
of
Yes.
exact data. Well, that is all the questions that we received. I want to thank you again, Adam, and I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague, Allie.
Thank you so much, Ron, for facilitating our Q&A session. It was a fantastic Q&A session as always. And Adam, for your assistance in answering those questions. Of course, we appreciate them. Since Ron mentioned we did not, we used all of our questions today. We were able to get through all of them. I am thrilled that we were able to get those answered. I will go ahead and move on to the next portion of our presentation, just our closing announcements. We have a very busy schedule for everybody within the next couple of months with webinars. Our next webinar is actually going to be next week, next Thursday, May 2nd, on the CDRLF grant round that will be opening. So we will be hosting a webinar on how to apply for the CDRLF grant. Later in the month, on May 22nd, we will be hosting a webinar on utilizing SAM.gov and grants.gov for additional funding sources. And then June kicks off our MDI Awareness Month. So we will be hosting 2 webinars geared towards educating on what MDIs, or minority depository institutions, are and how they serve their communities. And so learning about what an MDI is will be on June 5th. And then we will have MDIs, A History of Service, on June 18th. Like we mentioned, we do have a lot coming up within the next couple of months. Additional events, of course, are our MDI Awareness Month for the entirety of June 2024. And then the CDRLF grant round opens up May 1st and will be open until July 1st. So please, if you are interested, get your applications in before July 1st. I would also like to highlight in July with our partners, the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion. They will be hosting their annual DEI Summit in Minneapolis, Minnesota from July 9th through 11th, 2024. So if you are interested in attending, please scan this QR code for more information, and we hope to see you there. We did have several questions prior to this webinar on how to sign up for our learning management system. Like we mentioned before, it has over 200 courses, and we have included in this presentation a QR code to be able to sign up. That will take you directly to our registration page. Those who will download the PDF version of these slides, we have also linked the website into these slides as well. So you do have several ways of accessing them. Of course, it is also available on the ncua.gov website as well. Just some contact information to wrap up our webinar. We have the contact information presented above for our Division of Consumer Access. Consumer Access will assist with any inquiries regarding chartering credit unions, field of membership expansion, any inquiries that you may have. They are fantastic at answering all of those questions. So please feel free to email them or call them with any questions that you may have. And then the Resources Division, which consists of the MDI Preservation Program, the Grants and Loans Division, and then of course our very own Training Division. If you need any assistance with CDFI certification, grants and loans, and learning, please feel free to contact us via these email addresses we have provided or this phone number. Reach out for any and all questions. We are always happy to assist in any way that we can. I want to thank everybody for their time and attendance, and I hope that you found this webinar very educational and informative for helping your credit unions serve your communities. We hope you'll join us next time for our next webinar next week. And I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.